In this video, we're going to be taking a look at 7 reasons why the UK housing market might avoid a crash that I've been talking about for the past few months. So you guys know I've been very bearish on the UK housing market. I've released a number of videos about the potential of an upcoming UK house price crash. However, there are a number of factors supporting the UK housing market. So I think it's only fair to look at the other side of the argument. So I've got 7 reasons, 7 pieces of hopium for those of you that do not want to see a house price crash here in the UK. So reason number 1, the government, the UK, we are not building enough homes. And last year we were 120,000 homes short of the government's own target. So the government were targeting 300,000 new homes per year, and they delivered 180,000. So that's 40% shortfall on the number of homes they were looking to build. So if the UK does not build enough new properties to deal with the growing population, then that surely is going to provide support for UK house prices. Also, what happened during the global financial crisis, if I bring up this chart here, we can see that the number of new builds actually fell during that recession. So at the moment, we're at quite a high levels, really, historically. I know we had a big dip here during COVID, but things are actually quite high. So what I'm actually expecting to see is an even more of a slowdown in new builds. I remember back in 2008, we were actually looking at a new build estate after we'd bought our first house, and they just stopped building. They knew that they weren't going to make as much money if they built and sold those houses during those years. So they just stopped building for a few years, and I can quite possibly see the same thing happening. So I think new properties are already below the level that they need to be, and they're probably going to fall off more over the next year or two as the recession kicks in. So that's reason number 1, we are not building enough properties to sustain the population growth in this country. Number 2 is government support. Now, this is quite a generalised topic. So the government has already made changes to stamp duty. So we've seen them increase the nil rate already from 125,000 to 250,000. And for first-time buyers, they've increased the threshold from 300,000 to 425,000 pound. And there's no ruling out they won't make other changes to stamp duty. And if we go to the Telegraph as well, there was kind of a footnote hidden in the budget that Jeremy Hunt released a week or two back. And this is additional support for mortgages for homeowners as well that are on universal credit. So this is another scheme the government has introduced. So the Treasury is to extend support for low-income homeowners struggling with high mortgage costs. People on universal credit will now be able to apply for a loan from the government to help meet repayments after 3 months of difficulty rather than just 9. The government is also abolishing the zero earning rule that currently applies. So what that means is people that are on universal credit, if they're struggling to pay their mortgage, they can now apply for help sooner than they used to be in the past, which means it will reduce the number of properties that come onto the market out of necessity rather than out of choice. And we're already seeing some other Western countries, such as Spain, announcing basically a mortgage bailout. And I wouldn't be surprised to see other Western countries do this. There's no guarantee what the UK government will do, but I expect come the spring budget, once we've seen maybe a drop in house prices, they may step in then. So we'll keep a close eye on what happens in the spring budget next year. So that's reason number 2, government support. Could be absolutely anything, because they'll do anything to keep these house prices up, as it's so important to the figures for the UK. So as mentioned in the first point about immigration this year is at an all-time high of over 500,000. So whatever your take is on immigration, all you need to know is that immigration drives the UK population growth. Our natural birth rate does not grow the UK population growth, as it's not high enough. So the more potential home buyers that come to this country, and the homes that we're not building to keep up with that is going to continue to increase demand. So immigration is the third thing that's going to continue to support UK house prices. Now this next one is a slightly strange one, and this is the weak pound. So why is the weak pound good for UK house prices? Well, if you're not in the UK, the pound is very attractive for foreign investors to invest in this country, as they can basically get everything at a discount. And if we scroll down, the impact this has on the rental market, the research shows that the proportion of homes in the UK's private rented sector owned by non-resident landlords has increased to 11%, up from 7% a year ago. So there are people out there that are all of a sudden going, these houses in the UK look very cheap. And we may not see a house price crash. Say we see a 5 or 10% dip, And there's lots of people in other countries with good money that can go, do you know, I can buy these houses very cheap in the UK because we've got a great exchange rate at the moment. And they're going to snap up these properties as they fall, maybe before the people that are hoping for a bigger crash, like myself, get around to buying them. So potentially foreign investors and the weak pound are something else that will help to continue to support UK housing prices, as it's going to be such an attractive proposition because the pound is so weak. So that's reason number 4. Number 5 is inflation, which is, again, is a strange thing to say that is going to help support UK housing prices. But if inflation's running at 11%, that means actual wage growth is also going to be higher than what you'd expect it to be kind of historically. So if we look, the wage growth at the moment is the growth in the average total pay, including bonuses, was 6%, which is likely to be higher than what house price growth is going to be for the next year or two as well. So this wage growth as a result of inflation may help support house prices here in the UK. Up next, we also have swap rates. So this was a big thing I mentioned in one of my previous videos. I think I made the video when swap rates were at 6%. So the swap rate is basically the rate that lenders can borrow from lenders before they lend to you. So these have actually come down, which means mortgage rates will start to come down as well, as these lenders can borrow their money cheaper, then they can lend it to us cheaper as well. And we're starting to see some very early signs of this as the 5-year mortgage rates have dropped back below 6%, which is the first time in 7 weeks. So it's only a small decrease. We can see these swap rates have dropped off quite sharply. So we may see this come back down. So I'm certainly not expecting mortgages to come back down to 2 to 3%. If they start to settle around the 4 to 5% region, then hopefully all of this so-called stress testing that lenders have been doing for the past few years will come into play, and people will have enough leeway within their monthly budget to be able to pay these increased mortgage costs. So hopefully that will prevent house prices from crashing completely, as people will be able to afford to pay their mortgages, despite the fact that interest rates have at least doubled for most people. And the final point that I want to take a look at, and that is rental prices, because monthly rentals are absolutely crazy, and they have passed £1,200 per month on average for the first time. So obviously the argument could be, well, first-time buyers aren't going to have any money as they're spending it all on rent, but also these people are going to be desperate to buy a house. If owning a house, if the mortgage payments are lower than it is to pay monthly rents at £1,200 a month, these people, as soon as they get an opportunity to buy a house, I think they are going to take it. So we might start to see a small dip in house prices that brings enough of these buyers into the game, which could stop them completely crashing. So I'm not saying house prices aren't going to fall, but if you look at all of these reasons, what could potentially happen is we see some sideways action, which is basically offset by inflation, which basically means a real world drop in prices, or we might see a small drop in prices, and then the amount of support that I've talked about in this video could kick in and support the UK housing market. Now, my core belief is I still believe we're in for a big crash, and I've covered that in the other videos. So if you want to see those, make sure you check them out. But ultimately, those videos, along with this videos, are just my best guess as to what I think may happen. And if we go back to just after COVID, when everything started to open back up, everyone, including myself, was expecting there to be a big crash. And we've seen one of the craziest bull runs over the past year or so, with house prices going absolutely crazy. So as much as we're all now predicting that house prices are going to crash, the truth is none of us know truly what is going to happen. So hopefully you guys have found this video helpful. If you did, make sure you scroll down and hit the like button. If you want to see more from me, subscribe to the channel. And if you want to see how big I think this crash is going to be, I'm going to pop up a video in front of me now, and I recommend you guys give that a watch.